I'm not exactly sure how, but tonight I ended up finding and watching some prospect Danilo Gallinari tape, and it ended up being really insanely fun and a bit ridiculous and better than I expected in ways that we'll talk about. Gallo, like '08 draft, right? I feel like maybe he was like an underappreciated player throughout his career. Like was really great with the Clippers in like the late teens. But he was a ridiculous, ridiculous prospect, and we're gonna get into it. Gallo always had the shooting, right, where he was 6 foot, 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", right, and had the handle and touch and coordination to step back off the dribble and hit shots from basically all over the floor. Gallinari was just one of those shot makers in an era kind of before all of the tall shot makers we have, right? This was 2008, and Gallo was sidestep like Tatum fading into a three from the top of the key in isolation as a 19-year-old playing in, a pro league, which was pretty ridiculous in its own sense. But Gallinari became a legitimately unstoppable shot maker in the league. And this was super present on tape at the time, just like back up, fuck you, threes. And it was impressive to see the level of like the level of like confidence he has, but also the level of shots he's allowed to take, right? Like most teenagers and like teenage role players on teams like aren't allowed to take these kind of shots. Like they just can't. But Gallinari, right, is creating like the primary guys where he's hitting tough shots off of the dribble and isolating all the time and running a lot of pick and rolls as the ball handler, where that's like a really impressive and rare usage profile for someone that young. And he was a great off-ball shooter too, obviously. Here I kind of feel like he's like a receiver settling down into the middle of the zone, finding his spot, and just firing into a wide open jumper. He was like 40% from three. We'll look at some of the numbers in a bit. He was a great movement shooter too. He could come off screens. Back in '08, they were doing a lot more of these like curl pin down type plays, and Gallo absolutely feasted on those as you'd kind of expect. And his touch is probably what people know him for the most. Maybe like the mid-range post fadeaways, right? He clearly has outlier touch and just his ability to get shots in from anywhere at any angle. And you combine that with his height and his craft and the high release and all of that good stuff. He was really unstoppable in that mid-range area on switches. That touch was truly elite. Like this is ridiculous drive where Gallinari is just gonna kind of like not really get much separation, but hop steps like squeezes by and like we can barely see with this horrible footage. Like skips it in with his left hand. That is pretty ridiculous stuff. And I think Gallinari's touch is a big reason why he ended up being the level of star he was. Because I don't know, yeah, that special touch, and like I said, step throughs, all this good stuff. Gallinari working in the post with his size. He was really strong and physical at this age. Obviously had room to improve strength wise, but he was very comfortable using his body. He drew a ton of fouls, and that combined with being an elite shooter is kind of a rare combination. Most of these like potent tall shooters at young ages are like really either really skinny and or not comfortable playing on the interior. But what I was not ready for with Gallo was the advantage creation and the level of advantage creator he was. And maybe this is just me being young and like, not being around at the time, but Gallinari, man, I did not expect him to be breaking down defenders off the dribble with this kind of, burst and fluidity. And his handle was really special. I think at like 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", some of the best handles I've ever seen, and we'll see a lot more of that. But again, like smooth hang crosses, has enough burst to win cleanly into this gap and finish right there. Like I did not expect Gallo to be creating so many easy paint touches, because that's not really how my memory of his was in the league. Again, maybe it was wrong, and I think it really wasn't wrong. But Gallinari able to like win with the screen, which he was great with the screen. His ball screen pacing is excellent, always has been. And Gallinari, like with the screen against the tilted defense, like could win with his first step into the lane and dunk. Like he wasn't a bad athlete in terms of horizontal explosion. Again, just like pretty easily blowing by a defender. I think he called for a charge or whatever, but still that play is really impressive to me. And Gallo's flexibility popped a lot as well, where he was getting really low on these drives despite being really tall and long, right? Gallinari like dipping his shoulder to almost near parallel. That's really impressive torso flexibility, like right angle basically. And Gallinari is able to get around the defense and finish. So he had a lot of really unique athletic traits, despite not being like a traditional explosive athlete. And of course, just like the craft and the scoring feel. I think feel is a term that I usually use to describe passing. But I think scoring feel is very real. Just like understanding angles, like all the different moves and when to use them. Where I don't think Gallow's passing is like the bad thing, and we'll get to that in a little bit, I believe. But look at the level of advantage he's able to create. And if there was one issue with Gallo, I mean, he was never a great passer, and the playmaking wasn't great. Like he had a negative assist to turnover ratio. Did not see the floor super well, but look at this advantage creation, man. He backs out against this defender initially after losing, crosses back, beats the reach, and the ball should be out here or here or here, and just like is not able to make this pretty easy delivery. Yes, this was a nice play by the recovering defender, but like this ball was out so late, right? And I think there was a lot of that processing delay, not necessarily seeing open teammates, just like kind of throwing the ball away and making bad decisions at time where he was just like recklessly kind of knifing towards the rim and not really feeling the open teammates, right? The pretty wide open passing angles at a lot of these times. But it honestly just didn't matter because Gallo was that damn good of a scorer. Like he was such an incredible scorer and shot maker that he could just get away with that kind of thing. Again, right here, wide open pass to the middle, but Gallo's like, nope, I'm just gonna take a contested shot. And obviously that didn't work there. But his stat profile was kind of wild. You're watching me live Google right now because I was, what the heck? Okay, this is a hilarious tangent. But Gallo's stats were really impressive. I looked to his like assist to turnover wasn't great, but 55 free throw rate is really impressive as well as like the true shooting. He was very efficient. He got a ton of steals. Like the 3-point attempt, the 3-point numbers are good. Like he was a ridiculous shooter in 07, 08. And again, not a lot of threes or not as many threes shot at that point, right? 38.4% from three, crazy free throw percentage. Like this was a wild shooting prospect, just a ridiculous all-time shot maker. And we did see him like go kind of crazy as this shot maker type in the league. His first stint with the Knicks, these are from his like MIP second year, and Gallo was still doing some of the stuff, but you could definitely tell that the athletic advantage was not nearly as big, right? Like he could still win off the dribble with the screen and generate paint touches, but it wasn't as easy. He definitely looked a little bit more sluggish compared to the past, but he was always still a monster, like step back guy right there, creating with deceleration, fooling defenders, all of that good stuff. And Gallinari's had enough burst though to succeed in an off-ball kind of driving role, and that to me is why I talked a lot of times about it being important for role players or lower usage role players slash off-ball offensive players to play on ball and do more things at lower levels. Because again, Gallo has the level of burst. He had the level of burst at the previous level to like just cleanly beat guys off the dribble, right? Just like cleanly win off the dribble, get all the way to the rim, all that good stuff. But now in the NBA, those margins are smaller, but Gallo still has the burst to attack a closeout, right? He can kind of scale those skills down to a smaller role, whereas there are players who are, good, solid to good closeout attackers in college or lower levels, but, just don't have the burst to kind of translate that. And of course, Gallo won with his handle and his BS touch shots. Like, I don't know, this ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous kind of guy. But he was even like, and then Gallo had like a big ACL, I think, and eventually came back and ended up having another like kind of career renaissance on the Clippers and having like a really great scoring season. He definitely like maybe lost a little juice, but was always kind of the same player. And I think Gallo's like lack of rim reliance, the passing I would say improved a little bit as his career went on. The lack of rim reliance and like athletic reliance and just how good of like a foul drawer he is with strength and craft, and that kind of never really goes away, right? Along with this like old man fadeaway shit. But I think like the more controlled style and stepping back, beautiful jumper, like always a crazy shooter. But I think his more controlled style, like out of the gate, honestly, may have helped his longevity, right? Because he was never like someone who relied on getting to the basket a ton. Again, Gallinari, like if we look at his rim attempts throughout his career, was always in like the lower percentiles of the league. Like that second year in New York, he was barely getting to the rim at all. He was shooting shooting a ton of threes. But yeah, Gallinari is fascinating because I think it's a great example, one of how important it is to have outlier special traits, right? Gallo had outlier special touch, the handle for his size, I would say probably qualifies as well. Um, the production, like the dominance as a good offensive player in a pro league. It was the Italian league wasn't like a great league or anything, but still, he's an excellent offensive player as a pro league guy. Just like great statistical indicators across the board. Insane prospect. Um, not. I guess I maybe should have expected it more, but yeah, he was pretty ridiculous, and I hope you enjoyed this.